Greetings. My name is Isa Bokar C. And on our session today, I am back again for us to address certain issues, most of which are social, political, and other compelling forces that are more of a hindrance to the liberty and the progress of people within and outside the Gambia and countries within West Africa to begin with. The topic we are going to delve into today is the plight of immigrants, to be more precise, Gambian immigrants who chose to traverse the wilderness, the desert, in what some say or call searching for greener pastures, which of course is not a crime for one to travel from one country to another searching for fortune, but some xenophobic and the myopic-minded people who we have no name reserved for them so far other than being Arab slave traders in Libya, have chosen to target West African brothers and sisters and then shamelessly using arms to chain or shackle those brothers and sisters, attempt to dehumanize them, and then at the same time sell them in car parks and garages in Libya. But to the surprise of many, this is not catching the eyesight of the international media. There are other issues that are of lesser heinous crimes which are usually amplified on the screens of international media. And we have also realized that a lot of people have so far been killed in northern Nigeria by Boko Haram, when in most cases these are events and challenges that the international media either turns a blind eye to, or civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations are not doing their jobs as they should. That being the case, therefore, the role of the media or the role of scholars or researchers, or people who are just concerned for humanitarian reasons like myself, would not hesitate using social media, of course, where the platform amplifies it, it expands to international media also by going on the TV screens. We would not hesitate to expose such dehumanizing treatment coming from those, in quotes, Arab slave traders in Libya, whose intentions are nothing other than turning our brothers and sisters into commodities. When the head of the Bureau of the International Organization of Migration, which is IOM, headed by Mr. Othman Belbeidi, I think the causes and the effects exposed in his report are self-explanatory. Some of our brothers and sisters committed no crime. In fact, each one of them, their only crime is to travel from one country to another, or attempt to travel from one continent to another, searching for a better life, of course caused by a greater part of it tyrannical governments in West Africa itself, and the worst cancer is corruption, nepotism, and the like. But everything begins in corruption and ends in corruption, which of course is the mother earth of everything, stemming from mismanagement and ushering our nations through dark tunnels of misfortune, misery, and woes. That said, these brothers and sisters, when they are captured and then sold openly in 2017 in a world that we call a modern world, these brothers and sisters are turned to day laborers. Some of them are paid something meager, some are forced to work and then chased away when it is time for them to ask for those wages, or it can lead to them being whipped or flogged, and some are killed and buried without being identified. And our young ladies are raped and then forced into prostitution, which we also used to hear about in Eastern Europe during the war. But in the case of the Gambia, Nigeria, and other West African countries, to be more precise, Gambians traversing there, it is not a question of war, but it's a question of travelers being intercepted by armed bandits and turned to slaves. And the Italian government, with the support of some so-called lawmakers, are also working on introducing a bill to criminalize migration, which in fact that bill itself should be criminalized because it is going against the contents of the Geneva Convention and everything humanitarian. To that effect, migrants searching for fortune is what we call immigrants, but there is a difference between an immigrant and a refugee. The immigrants are those who leave home searching for fortune, or some call it greener pastures, and the refugees are those who are more or less stateless people whose plight exceeds the limits. In fact, there is no limit for plight anyway. It shouldn't even begin, but that's just a way to say are those who are searching to be protected. Therefore, the name immigrant and refugee. Well, first, among the challenges that these brothers and sisters face is culture shock, and also the risks from some xenophobic lot, especially those in countries like Italy. And the West African governments should remember one thing though. The side effects that were caused by the Mataba mercenary training camp in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, we all know, where Charles Taylor, Fode Sanko, people like Sam Bokari, Mosquito, the other vicious fighters like General Butt Naked in Liberia, got their training from and got their motivation and arms from. We also remember the story that shrouded the fall of the Panama or the Panam airline in Lockerbie. Therefore, if West African governments remain mute or negligent about this, let them be rest assured that those Gambians, Senegalese and Nigerians, particularly the Gambians, who are being recruited and forced to work in farms, could also be forced to fight as mercenaries who will indeed be absorbed by terrorist organizations and would later on come back to West Africa to be a menace. And we have all seen how the acme in northern Mali and the current quagmire in northern Mali began These are leftovers of fighters in Libya, some of whom were recruited and forced into fighting in the front line. That being the case, suggestions that some of us may have is that the United Nations Security Council should be involved in this forthwith or with immediate effect through the BA of the UNHCR, because this is a humanitarian crisis. Some are trying to downplay when they cannot. And then governments like that of the Gambia, especially us being that close to Senegal, could as well start working on this by galvanizing support to introduce a resolution at the United Nations, and then lobby very strongly for other countries to co-sponsor that resolution, therefore call for this to be the #1 step of denouncing Libya, and at the same time, if need be, sanction them, and then we can put in place a spreadsheet or statistics of every person accounted for, and then research can be conducted in the Gambia itself or other countries for relatives to come forward and say they have not heard from their loved ones for such a time. And in a case like this, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations in a country like the Gambia are also being challenged to step up and participate in helping that research for a document to be prepared to help support the government also, because we have so many NGOs in West Africa particularly who are as useless as uselessness, and such non-governmental organization should be deregistered and then be thrown out or be asked to participate towards helping the plight or helping remove the plight of Gambians and other nationalities, especially those who are affected by what is happening in Libya right now. That ends the version in English, and I will try to do my best in translating it into our local language. But for now, that is all we have to say. Thank you very much. This is your brother Isa Bokar C.